Hello, Ricky here again. Today we're going to do the development orchids for the third time, and we've got some developments and we've got one that, in the words of Monty Python, has gone before and joined the choir in Visibile. I don't think that you'll be very surprised when we actually come round to doing that. So, let's make a start. Okay, Tulumnia huxiana. As always, I suspect you'll see far better how this is developed with the photos than with the video, because it's so small. I am thinking of changing how I keep this. Up to now it's been kept completely flat like that, and this end facing the window. But it isn't doing ever such a lot. Whichever way up, that's a better way up for it. It's not doing ever such a lot. It's doing something, but it's not doing a lot. And the reason I'm thinking of changing how I use it, or keep it, is this one. Now granted, this is a hybrid. And it's one of the big ones, so it ought to be a bit more forgiving and a bit more vigorous. They very often are, of course, hybrids. But when you see that this new growth here is growing extremely well, that one, and then round the back, you see the roots in there, all this lot. So this hangs from the end of the green rack facing the window. So I'm actually wondering whether I would be better to drill a hole in this one, just there, and hang that up like that and see where we go. The other one seems to do okay that way. This one is not doing an awful lot. Right, Restrepia falkenbergii. This is the best of all the Restrepias I've got. It's growing well. It's flowered better than anything else. I've got more new growth than any of my others. And I've moved at least one lot of cakeys into the pot to bush it out. I've got some discoloration on those leaves which will have to be trimmed away, but this is the one that's living upstairs in a pot in an old tank, which has its own light, and that is on 12 hours a day, and I suspect that's making the big difference. But there's a lot of new growths on this. We've got a new growth here. This is relatively new. There's a cakey there which is actually flowered. So, and there's a little diddly one, look, coming out from this tip here. So, yeah, that needs a little bit of trimming to get rid of this rather nasty looking leaf tips and things. But nevertheless, this has been doing quite well. So, yeah, another one there, look, that's coming up from a leaf node. So it's had another burst of flowering. It's now growing. It's doing okay. I'm pleased with that. It's certainly doing better than any of the other Restrepias. I've lost one of the ones I had for longest. That's finally gone. So this looks to be the way forward if I'm going to keep Restrepias. I bought the first ones as an experiment, and as you can see, it's only been partially successful. So we'll see how we go. Zygopetalum cranitum, the only species zygo I've got, bought from Burnham's and raised by them from seed, as I understand from Arthur. I understand when I bought it. It's grown well. We've got several new growths, and there's 2 more coming. There's one here, and there's another one slightly bigger just there. There's no sign of flowers yet, but as I say, it's never flowers, so I don't know how early in the development of a new growth this particular one flowers. But the whole thing is full of roots. Somebody said once when I posted a video on this before that they are an absolute root monster, and this one certainly is. This pot is beginning to distort from the amount of root that's in there. It's in the Westland type compost, so it's a finish bark with ceramis. The roots look okay, but looking at the top it's dry, at the bottom it's still damp. So this is a major problem with Westland, it doesn't dry very well. So this was only repotted in April. I may have to have another look at it before too much longer, because I can't. I don't want to get this going backwards because of the compost it's in. It's one of those things. It obviously enjoys moisture, and we know that. All zygos like moisture. But I suppose this is Muggins' fault. I've been overwatering it effectively. It's not drying, so I'm going to have to treat this very much the same way that I've always treated my Psychopsis, where again likes moisture but likes to dry out somewhat. So what I've got to do in future is wait until this is much more dry. It won't get watered this week. There's just not enough happening. It's not warm enough in the room. I mean, this is kept upstairs on a bedroom windowsill. There is a radiator, but it's not turned up full. It's on a thermostat and it's turned down quite a long way. So it's probably no more than about 20 most of the time when the radiator is running. So there isn't the heat, there isn't the daylight, although there's some growth, so we're not generating a lot of transpiration, so the moisture staying in this pot. So one thing to bear in mind, folks, is read your pot. If you can't see, like on this one, stick your finger in. I tend to use my little finger and just poke it around, because this is a kind of thing that causes all kinds of problems. I find exactly this with moss. When I first started keeping some of the more unusual orchids, other than the fowls and nobody type dendrobiums, I had things in moss. The top would be dry, I'd water it, the top would be wet, the bottom would be absolutely sodden. So I lost 1 or 2 orchids like that. So something to be aware of. Okay, Masdevallia nidifica. Of course we ended up splitting these into 3 when I repotted it last time, which was the 7th of March. They're varying in what they're doing. Some of the new growths are not thriving, some are, so I'm not really sure what's going on. But my feeling is I might have overdone the moss. These are not drying out even slightly. I worry that might be a problem. That was the one we called one last time after it had been done. There's something not quite right. This is 2. Again, we've got some new growths that are coming through. There are some that are dying off. And the roots look okay, they're all the way down to the bottom of the pot, but something obviously isn't quite right. One thing that did happen with these this summer, when they were upstairs on the back bedroom windowsill, I brought them back now downstairs into the conservatory. When they were upstairs, they were getting possibly more sunlight than they liked. You can possibly see it better in this one, that some of the leaves have got sort of a reddish tinge, and you know that's faded on most, but it's not faded altogether. Whether I overdone, I don't know. This peach actually, excuse me, did put a flower out, but it's the only one of the 3 that did, and it was only 1. Now we've got a new growth coming high up just here, and then we've got some other new growths down the bottom. They're not brilliant, and I'm not altogether sure as to where to go. One thing I am wondering about is to try mounting one of these. I've got 3, so if it doesn't do very well, I don't know, but something like that where you've got the keiki growing up and the roots coming out high up, that would probably be better off on a mount, because it does seem as if it puts out some new growth, a little bit like the Restrepia falkenbergii, higher up the stems rather than coming up from the base. So, Masdevallia nidifica. Right, Ornithorhynchum or Gamesa radicans. Very pleased with this, had a nice flowering. It's grown on quite well. We've got new growths coming again, we've got roots moving, and we've actually got one last little flower spike just there that's going to come out. But we've had a nice blooming for the size of the plant. As I say, we've got a number of new growths coming on it. There's one there, you know, so they're all over the place. It's starting to fill this panel. So there's not really an awful lot to say about this one. And what I do with it is when I'm watering it, which it gets most days, is I don't dunk it. I roll it backwards like that, and I pour the water up here and let it run down the bark. I do that for all my mounts. I think that probably mimics better the way the rain falls. You get some on it, but you're certainly not talking about dunking it, and I don't think that will do it any good at all. But yes, we've got a number of new growths. We've got roots going, so I think by this time next year that'll be at least double the size. So Gamesa radicans, Ornithophora radicans, take your pick. I'm never quite sure which of the genus names is correct. Some people say one, some people say the other. Oncidium sotoanum, another one that ended up getting split. I bought a nice plant from the Orchid Society of Great Britain stall at the Autumn Chelsea Flower Show. Put out some new growths, then they stalled, and I found out when I looked one day there was a snail in there. And some people say one snail can't do a lot of damage. Well, that one took the tips off every root. So I ended up putting them in these pots, and they have tried to do something. This one was the weakest. It's not looking very clever at all. The main bulb is very badly shrunken. We've got 3 new growths, but they're not going anywhere. They haven't moved for weeks. So I'm beginning to wonder whether this is actually just not strong enough to pick itself up. On the other hand, this was a better plant. It had more bulbs, and they've not gone backwards as much. We've got 2 new growths. We've got one here and one there, and they are much better. But more importantly, as you can see there, I hope, we've got roots coming down. So we've got lots of new roots coming from these. So even if these are not the greatest new growths in the world, we've got some nice roots. There's some off the other one here, and they're going all the way down. So this one, I think in particular, is of the 2 the more likely to pick up and go. The other one, I don't know. I think your guess is as good as mine. Will we get any flowers off this next year? To be honest, I doubt it. I think it's been very badly weakened, and I'd like to get it a lot bigger than it is. Start getting, if I can get some decent sized bulbs off these, so that's fine, but otherwise, if it tries to flower, I'll take the spike off and try and keep it growing. But I think, looking at these, this is the one with a better chance. So, Oncidium sotoanum. Right, this is the what was it? Laeliocat Golden Nugget Golden Nugget Dresden. Sorry, it was never a good plant, and over the last month or so, it's just finished. I put it in moss to try and give it some more humidity. We've got a bit of a growth which hasn't moved in goodness only knows how long. There's no sign of any roots from it. Or anything else happening. So I suspect that this is going to end up in the bin. Hold on a minute, what's happening there? There's something coming from the bottom of that new growth. I shall have to have a look at this, but as you can see, the great majority of it is dead. Absolutely nothing left. So this is going to get trimmed to bits, and where's it going to get any strength from? So that, I am fairly certain, is going to be the last time we see that one. Okay, another one that I came as Laleocatleya, or I think actually it's Rincatleanthe, and this is Xingming Beauty Rainbow. Came at the same time from the same nursery as as Golden Nugget Dresden. Was in a little bit better condition, but nothing fantastic for certain. But it was big enough to put roots out, and it grew 2 strong growths despite me knocking one off on one side of it, trying to repot it, and that was in May this year. But in between May and now it's put up, albeit a unifoliate cane, no sign of a sheath. On the other one though, it put up a sheath, put some buds up inside, 2 as far as I can see, possibly 3, but I think 2. I didn't know what to do with it. Never. My other Cattleya, the white one, doesn't put a sheath up, and I just kept an eye on it. I was going to open the sheath if it needed opening. But it split all by itself, and then it's opened and is now dried out, as you can possibly see. But we've got 2 good flower buds. That is extending steadily, and is doing very well. So this is Rincatleanthe Xingming Beauty Rainbow. Okay then, that's the development orchids for November 2022. We've got another one which will be the beginning of February, which will round out the year, and then if you want me to, we'll pick another half a dozen and we'll carry on with this routine. Please let me know what you think. Is it worth doing or not? I like it because it was just from a personal point of view. I see these things every day, and it's a bit like you're seeing your grandchildren after a couple of months and realising how big they've grown. It's the same with these. I take the photographs, and it's only when I see the photographs and think, crikey, what's it done in the last 3 months, that you realise just how fast some of these things are growing. So I think that's enough of me for now. Thank you for watching. I hope that's been interesting, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.